Hello, welcome to Jurassic Park 3 Minute. We'll be discussing the second Jurassic Park sequel, 1 minute at a time. I'm Brad.
And Dave.
And today we're here to discuss minute 58 of Jurassic Park 3. But before we get to that, David, there's been some unfortunate news in the fandom over this last, a bit over a week ago, but I think the general fandom's starting to learn about it this past week.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a dear friend of both you and I, Astrid Vega, who ran the YouTube Jurassic Park toy reviews, the JP collection, and she had the Jurassic Room. I think it was in the Guinness World Records as the largest Jurassic Park collection, at least known, at least publicly anyway.
Yeah, I know the collection had been counted. I hadn't caught up with what the actual outcome of that was, but that's a feat in itself.
She was an extremely passionate fan. She had her own Jurassic Park themed restaurant, Prehistoric Land in Guadalajara, Mexico, and she was just an amazing friend, an incredible fan, and it's a loss deeply felt across the fandom.
Yeah, I remember a lot of the conversations that when she was getting that restaurant started and trying to bring it into fruition, and just how passionate she was for that restaurant and her collection in general.
She was somebody you could really, she wasn't opinionated, but if you asked her opinion on something, she gave her very honest, very truthful opinion, and she always was a valuable friend, and frankly, I don't know what to say. I'm not very good at eulogies and stuff, but
here.
She was a friend, a good friend to both of us, and it's very sad to see her gone.
Yeah, it's definitely a big loss to the franchise, one that'll be felt for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory that there are two kinds of boys. There are those that want to be astronomers and those that want to be astronauts. The astronomer, the paleontologist, gets to study these amazing things from a place of complete safety.
But then you never get to go into space.
Exactly. It's the difference between imagining and seeing. Be able to touch them. That's all that Billy wanted.
Moving over to Jurassic-Pedia.com for a moment, David. This week we're looking at a new article posted up by Egypticus 3. Hey, I can finally say it. On the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom cutscenes. There's been a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of different shots in the trailers and rumours of different cutscenes that were in the film, and now we've got a full comprehensive list here of those known cutscenes and some photos from those scenes as well.
Yeah, there's a lot cut from Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom, and I think it was almost like half an hour was cut from the island portion alone, which is frankly kind of disappointing because that was I think the strongest part of the movie was the that fog and mist-shrouded Isla Nublar really kind of, for the first time, I felt the island actually evoked what its namesake, Cloud Island, because there's just all these clouds that kind of raked themselves across the island that we saw, and reminded me of Ian Malcolm's quote from the book where he first sees it, and he's like, Jesus, it looks like Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple here that we see. One from the very opening scene where that was in the trailers, where we see the Mosasaurus eye, and Dr. Malcolm comes back and says, "Here we are talking about dinosaurs again." And then there's another scene with Maisie and Eli Mills where they're discussing the Sanctuary Island, and that I think we mostly got images from the kind of behind the scenes thing that we had going on. That behind the scenes feature that was released before the movie.
I'll have to get onto the script, the shooting script, see if I can find that somewhere and see if there's what the dialogue between Mills and Maisie is when they're discussing Sanctuary, if there's just sort of saying, yeah, we're going to save the animals, or if there's actually dialogue about the island in that scene, because that'd be an interesting one to find out.
Yeah, that scene was the one where we saw her playing with the little T-Rex figurine that was part of the Lockwood's Jurassic Park diorama.
Yep. And one that I definitely
then,
would
of course,
have loved to see more of is Blue's Nest, with some of the dead creatures, dead animals that were sort of
hmm
production made and
yeah,
had on location for the scene.
like the one of them was a giant, a very large crocodile skull, possibly a Deinosuchus,
Hmm.
which is an extinct species of crocodile, and then another one that is a bit more infamous, the Stegozilla that we see outside of Blue's Nest.
That thing is a monster.
Oh yeah, we got pictures up here, and it just shows this beast is like 60 feet long, like 30, 40 feet tall. It's literally Stegozilla.
Yeah, if you've been hiding under a rock for a while, you probably don't know much about what the issues with Stegozilla are. But head over to Jurassic-Pedia and check out the photos, and you'll see, or even just Google Google Stegosaur Blue's Nest or anything like that. Just production building this massive, I wouldn't say puppet, but a massive prop of a dead Stegosaur, and it being at least, I'd say at least twice the size of what any other Stegosaur we've seen in the franchise, if not bigger.
Yeah, and one of my favorite kind of cut scenes that were filmed was there was a inflatable Indominus Rex head that they used that I'm sorry, not Maisie, that Iris was going to have to defend herself with, where we see Iris gets killed by the Indominus Rex, and that entire scene was cut from the movie. I'm not even sure if if ILM finished it or not, because they got a still with Iris defending herself with a broom against the inflatable head.
Yeah, deep down I hope that's because at last minute they've decided that they want to bring Iris back for the third movie and sort of continue that Maisie storyline, and not have her killed off, because it is one of those mysteries of the film. What happened to her? Yes, she was fired and presumably left the mansion, but we have this photo of her confronting the Indominus and Indoraptor and presumably killing her, and it's not something you need to see in the film. You can see her start to fend it off and just cut to a scream or something, but even just the visual of this poor old woman that's been fired, and when all she was trying to do was look after Maisie and keep Lockwood secret, and she comes to the jaws of the Indoraptor, when that should be more for the villains in the military to get picked off by that thing.
Mm-hmm. And lastly here, just one of my favorite that was cut here was a extended scene with Mills showing Eversol, the auctioneer. He's showing him off the Indoraptor, and we see the Indoraptor's claw just come out of the shadows and just kind of like flipping a human skull. And this is one actually had storyboards for it as well. There's going to be a whole scene where it's kind of almost, I think it was described as a what was that? Alas, poor Yorick. What was that? Oh, Hamlet. Where we see the Indoraptor kind of holding the skull like Hamlet, and it's almost like contemplating its own existence.
Well, it
somewhat
adds,
like Hamlet in that scene. What's that?
yeah, it adds a lot to that the whole sequence with the Indoraptor in the basement too, because it shows on security tapes when they have a technician that's grabbed by the animal, which is most likely why that red line's painted on the ground, and then the lighting in that sort of alcove or in that area where it is, they find that the Indoraptor deliberately smashed the light so it was in the dark. And as you said, he sort of Mills brings the auctioneer in to show him, and that's when he's playing with that skull of that technician, which is a funny little bit that just means they haven't been able to get in there close enough to it or trank it to retrieve the body.
Oh yeah, well, remember when Ken Wheatley, he tries to trank it and it pretty much has no effect, but it would also kind of imply that maybe they've tried tranking the Indoraptor before, and it understood what it was meant to do when it encountered a tranquilizer dart. Sorry, I got a little tongue twisted.
Well, and that would have made that Wheatley scene a lot better if we'd known previously. As it says here, like it was believed that the technician had tranquilized the animal before going into the cage to fix the light, and then when Wheatley gets and tranquilizes again, we know it can can get past that instead of having the Looney Tunes look over the shoulder as Wheatley's trying to get the teeth. But yeah, I haven't looked too hard on the Blu-ray or the DVD. Wouldn't be on the DVD. The Blu-ray bonus features. Are there any of these cutscenes on the Blu-ray?
No, there's not, and it's interesting because we never got any cutscenes for Jurassic Park or Jurassic Park 3 or well, we did for The Lost World and Jurassic World, but those really seem to be the outliers in the franchise because most of the movies seem to not include cutscenes. In fact, I'm kind of hoping personally that someday along the road that we actually get extended editions of all the movies with all the cutscenes restored and placed back into the movie the way they do it with the TV cut of The Lost World.
How much of the island have you explored?
I stayed pretty close to the compound. Figured if anyone came looking for me, that's where they'd start.
Alright, lastly, before we get into today's minute, we've got a bit of feedback here, and over the last couple of weeks, there's been some good discussion on the Facebook page about the fence that we come to with the Aviary Canyon, and Jeremy sort of posted on there, just it's why he loves the film, and being on sauna, being able to sort of imagine and speculate about what actually was happening on the island before Clarissa hit.
Oh yeah,
that's why we love sauna.
I definitely agree with Jeremy here because I remember when Jurassic Park 3 came out as being a kid. I was 8 years old, and just the thought of hidden stuff on sauna that we didn't get to see before, stuff that they kind of maybe kept as black sites and didn't keep kind of on it was more off the books, so to speak, and just opened up a world of possibilities to my 8-year-old imagination. And being in the jungle and being in Illinois with a more deciduous forest, it kind of just, and with The Lost World already, it kind of brought dinosaurs home to me. Me and my friends, we would play Jurassic Park all the time out in the local forest reserves. It was a lot of fun.
And also, I noticed a couple of weeks ago now that there's a new service I got emailed about the podcast, and it shows me feedback left in other places where the podcast is being released, because I can only see iTunes Australia here and not US or anywhere else, and there's been a fair bit of feedback left on some of those services as well, and
oh great,
been trying to big thanks to everyone for your constructive criticisms and your praise for the podcast. I know there was one there that was talking about the 40-minute toil movie discussion before we actually get into the minute itself, and I know editing. I know, like, oh wow, that was 35 minutes of us talking about the colossal T-Rex, and then 6 minutes of the minute itself. So I hope you're noticing a bit of a difference. We've started Jurassic Minutes, which will be that monthly stuff we talk about news and that. If we do get some new acquisitions or new things in, we will talk briefly about that at the start of the minutes, as we'll hear next minute. But we are going to try and keep the bulk of the episodes to the minutes themselves, and we can do mysteries or do Jurassic Minutes for the other stuff to cover that. And looking at the download rates, there's a lot of people that are interested in the Jurassic Minutes and the us talking about news and other things as well. So we'll definitely be keeping that going as we head into Jurassic World 3.
And I'm very thankful that nobody picked on my poor little microphone that I had. I'm sure people who have been listening to the podcast for a while have recognized a very great increase in the quality of my microphone in the last couple weeks, minutes. And that's because I recently bought a new microphone that is not something from 2003 that I bought out of a pawn shop.
Yeah, well, I've always been told, if you have audio issues like that, just own it and keep going. Don't bring light to it. If people are listening, they're listening because they're interested in the content, and they'll, for the most part, put up with issues like that. And I'm able to remove some of it during editing, but yeah, some of that buzz and volume, automatic volume change was hard to get around. All right, ready to get into today's minute?
Yeah.
As we entered minute 57 of Jurassic Park 3, the group had come down into the canyon and began to walk down the catwalks on the canyon wall. As we open on minute 58, We cut down low as Grant starts to make his way down a staircase. And before he even gets to the third step, the stairs break away and fall free down to the canyon in the mist. Luckily for Grant, he's caught by Paul, who helps him back to his feet. As we hear the broken off section of staircase bounce and scrape down the canyon wall several times before a loud splash signals it's reached the bottom. At the 13-second mark, Paul whistles and says, "You okay?" And Grant nods his head, "Yeah." At the 22-second mark, Grant turns around and makes his way back towards the bridge they'd passed earlier, giving Billy a death stare on the way past. The 25-second mark, as he makes his way under the bridge, it groans and shudders suddenly, and he stops and holds his hand up. "Let's do this one at a time, shall we?" At the 42-second mark, Grant disappears into the mist as he passes the midway point of the bridge, but still making noises as he walks across. As we cut to the other side, he takes his hands off the railing and starts to look around, as a flock of birds flutter in the mist, unseen. And as the minute ends, Grant reaches the other side and starts to check out his surroundings. And this ends minute 58 of Jurassic Park 3. As we open on this minute, Grant begins to walk down those stairs, heading to the next landing below, and we get a cut of his feet stepping down. Unfortunately, once you see the fracture in the stair for this little goof sequence to happen, you can never unsee it. But it's sort of lucky too that the stairs descend so sharply, because as he's stepping down, his sort of bum's pretty much still above the steps above, and as the stairs break away, he sort of just sits down, falls down onto his butt as Paul grabs him and is able to help him back up to his feet on the landing.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is one of the small, more subtler moments of Paul Kirby that I think really brings to light William H. Macy as an actor, where he just he just so casually looks over the edge of the canyon and whistles and goes, "You okay?" And that's just something that I could see a normal person doing, you know? It's not overacted, it's not underacted, it's not stiff, it's not dramatic, it's just a small, "You okay?" You know?
Yep. And it's sort of because we've had the last couple of minutes here in this abandoned area, the fog, the sound of the wind blowing through the canyon, and the score. It's sort of the suspense of it, and we don't really get a feeling of just how rickety this is until this stairway breaks away, and then just the immediate counter as Grant, as we sort of look down and watch the stairs drop away and into the fog, and you sort of hear that banging as it's hitting the rocks on the way down, and before it finally splashes in the water a good few seconds later.
I also think it's interesting how they are going down this, and if you look at it, the entire stairway is kind of shredded, and as it goes down to the next level down there, and you kind of just see that it's missing the top of it, and like you mentioned, that crack, which may or may not be intentional, just because, I mean, yeah, it's evidently probably what they used on the set to make it fall, but at the same time, that's probably what it would look like when it would have just corroded like that. It would just crack, crack off and rust away.
Yeah, and it is interesting too, as we see that sort of staircase fall away, we do see that next landing down, which is a lot larger and without the cage above it, and it had me wonder maybe if the catwalks that we see here with the cages over it aren't necessarily built for protection of the humans in the aviary. Maybe they're there as a safety thing for the humans for the crumbly canyon walls. Maybe they're in sections where the canyon's a bit more unstable. Because it is volcanic rock.
It is true, and volcanic rock is very crumbly in a way. It's sharp and jagged and breaks away very easily.
But it'd make a little bit more sense why this landing here is uncovered and why there's no coverings over the bridge that we see in the next couple of minutes. But that was just something I thought about anyway. It's just something opposed to it being to keep the people safe from the pteranodons. But yeah, after Paul whistles and asks Grant if he's okay, Alan sort of nods and says yeah, and turns back to walk towards the bridge that we seen last minute that he sort of disregarded before, and he sort of, as he does here, he gives Billy a real death stare.
Oh yeah, he does. Yeah, he definitely does, and it's interesting. I mean, he just looks at him and he just glares at him. And we get a close up of Billy's on his face, and he just looks like. Yeah, if he had a tail, it would be between his legs.
Yeah, is it because Billy wasn't there to help him, or is it because it's not Billy's fault they're down in this situation?
No, but I think he's just pissed at him in general, and he's not, him being there is not. Like, I mean, I know with my dad especially, if he's angry, even I'm that way sometimes. If I'm in a mood, I'll just isolate myself because anybody who gets in my way is gonna feel my wrath.
Yeah, I understand that. But Grant continues to walk out onto the bridge, and it sort of shudders as he walks, and you can hear that lovely sound effect of the metal fatiguing. And he sort of stops everyone and says, "Let's do this one at a time, shall we?" And that's when he sort of continues out onto the bridge, and his hands just hovering above the handrails as he walks, sort of being ready in case the bridge gives way like the stairs just did before. Especially when you can hear again those sound effects of the bridge groaning under his weight.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sort of disappears into the fog, and you can see sort of two cables going up into the sky, and it's really the only time we see them is from this side of the bridge. And I just wonder if they go up to the roof of the aviary or where they go, because all the other cabling we see go back to the walls either side of the canyon.
Oh yeah, because we see the other two cables here that look like they probably anchor back into the canyon or onto the metal catwalks themselves.
Yeah, and we've got some great behind the scenes photos of this set area during production. We'll post them up on the Facebook group because having this bridge obviously being a real bridge and walking out, there's probably only a couple of metre drop off underneath it.
Yeah, it was, and of course they had like the airbags and all that underneath it just in case anybody fell. They're always uber careful on productions like these, you know?
Yeah, yep. And we say cables. Yes, it's supposed to be cables in a film, but most of it's rope painted grey, like we've seen up on the fence earlier.
Yeah.
But we follow Grant as he continues across the bridge and gets further across, and his sort of confidence in the bridge must be getting better of it staying together, because eventually he takes his hands away from the railing, but he's suddenly alarmed by a flutter of birds that we can hear, and the sounds of some of that rock crumbling, which again goes back to my theory from before. Do we reckon these are actual birds fluttering, or do you reckon it's the pteranodons nearby that they're actually disturbing?
I don't remember the fluttering sound. I'd have to go back and listen to that, but I think the way we hear it in the movies, the rush of the wings going underneath the pteranodon, or rush of the air going underneath the pteranodon wings, is more of a kind of like a